We built telescopes to stare into the abyss, never considering that the abyss had learned to stare back through us. The eye isn't a window to the soul, it's a doorway. There are places where the skin of our reality is thin, stretched taut over a void that is not empty, but waiting. On the evening of November 3rd, 2007, at exactly 11:47 p.m., a satellite technician named Roland Voss, alone in the sterile hum of a government monitoring station, became the first to notice the veil tearing. He was charting thermal patterns over the Pacific Northwest when his screen flagged an anomaly. It was a soft, persistent heat bloom, emanating from a place that should have been as cold as the grave. The derelict Thornwood Ridge Observatory, a concrete monolith perched on a basalt cliff just outside Portland, Oregon. The facility had been officially decommissioned in 1989. For 18 years, it was a silent tomb of forgotten science, with no power, no personnel, and no scheduled activity. Yet, for 3 consecutive nights, Roland's orbital scans had detected this signature, a steady, rhythmic pulse of warmth, almost like a slow, deep breath. He was tired. It was late. He logged the reading as non-priority sensor ghosting, a phantom in the machine, and drove home. It was the last report he would ever file. 6 days later, his car was discovered idling on the observatory's overgrown access road. The windows were opaque with condensation from the inside. The driver's seat was empty, but a cup of coffee in the console was still strangely, impossibly, warm. On the passenger seat, a single sheet of printer paper was covered in frantic, jagged cursive. It wasn't a note. It was a revelation. They were never stars. What federal investigators found inside the Thornwood Ridge Observatory doesn't fit into our understanding of the world. It wasn't alien technology or a supernatural haunting. It was worse. It was a new set of rules. A parasitic physics that bent time, rewrote memory, and colonized human consciousness through the simple, passive act of observation. The following account has been painstakingly assembled from recovered audio logs, corrupted security footage, classified government incident reports, and the final, terrifying journal of Dr. Eleanor Havers, the lead astrophysicist at Thornwood, until its sudden, panicked closure. Her journal ends with a single sentence, underlined 17 times with such force the pen tore through the paper. It looks back when you look too long. Thornwood Ridge was not born in shadow. It was a product of hope and paranoia. Built in 1963 with joint funding from the National Science Foundation and a Cold War initiative shrouded in secrecy, codenamed Project Lumen. Its purpose was to listen to the heavens, to track deep sky radio bursts and catalog the strange music of the cosmos beyond the Kuiper Belt. The heart of the facility was the Mark V Cassegrain refractor, a colossal hybrid telescope housed within a rotating dome of brutalist concrete, all sharp angles and windowless isolation, a temple to a silent, distant god. The official story for its 1989 closure was mundane, structural degradation and budget reallocation. But the whispers among the staff told a different tale. They spoke of the November event of 1988, a single night when the entire team went dark during a routine deep field scan of the constellation Ophiuchus. For 72 hours, Thornwood was silent. When contact was finally re-established, the project was in chaos. 3 senior researchers had resigned without notice, vanishing from the scientific community. A 4th doctor, Miriam Cho, a brilliant radio astronomer, suffered a complete psychotic break. She was committed to Cedar Hills Psychiatric Hospital after claiming the stars had begun speaking in arithmetic. Her official diagnosis was occupational psychosis, a mind broken by isolation and pressure. But her intake interview contains a detail that was chillingly overlooked. In the margins of her medical chart, she had drawn the same symbol over and over, a perfect circle with 13 radial lines, none of them evenly spaced. It was a diagram of an unknown celestial body, or perhaps a warning. That same symbol would later be found etched into the interior lens housing of the Mark V telescope. For nearly 2 decades, the observatory sat abandoned, surrendering to the patient siege of coastal fog and blackberry vines. It was a local ghost story, a place teenagers dared each other to explore. Then, in late October of 2007, A YouTuber and amateur astronomer named Marcus Lynn uploaded a video titled Ghost Light over Thornwood. His grainy night vision footage showed a soft, amber glow pulsing from the dome's sealed ventilation slats. It pulsed once every 37 seconds, a rhythm like a slow, sleeping heart. The video garnered a few thousand views, a small curiosity on the early internet. But then Lynn's channel was abruptly deleted. His last tweet, time-stamped October 29th, was a desperate plea. Stop looking up. They're using our eyes. 2 days later, Roland Voss saw the thermal signature, and 5 days after that, he vanished forever. On November 12, 2007, a federal containment team, clad in hazmat gear, breached the main doors of the observatory. They found a scene of profound temporal disturbance. A thick blanket of dust covered everything, yet every workstation was powered on. Monitors glowed with looping star charts from 1988 or fizzed with a strange, hypnotic static. The air was cold, but carried the distinct electric smell of ozone. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crunch of their boots on fallen plaster. In the main dome, they found the Mark V telescope, but it was not aimed at the sky. It was canted at an impossible angle, pointing directly downward. Its immense lens was focused on a reinforced steel panel in the concrete floor, a section that did not exist on any architectural blueprint. After cutting through the panel, they discovered a hidden chamber. It was designated Vault Theta. A perfect cube, 12 feet by 12 feet, its walls lined with lead sheeting and a dense mesh of copper wire, as if designed to contain some exotic form of radiation. At the exact center of the room, on a stark metal pedestal, stood a large glass vacuum cylinder. And inside, suspended in a viscous, amber fluid, was a single human eye. Its eyelid was sewn wide open with black surgical thread, its unblinking gaze fixed on the telescope lens above. Retinal scans would later confirm the eye belonged to Dr. Alina Havers. Official records listed her as missing since November 5th, but the eye was not dead. It was still recording. This was not a metaphor. Wires ran from the cylinder's base, connecting it to a modified Sony VCR, a relic from the early 90s. The tape inside contained 47 hours of continuous footage, but it wasn't a recording of the chamber. It wasn't a feed from a security camera. The tape was playing Alina's memories in reverse. The first few hours were mundane, clinical. They showed her calmly adjusting telescope calibrations, her reflection caught in a monitor's glass, sipping coffee from a chipped NASA mug. But as the tape spooled backward through time, the images grew fractured, nightmarish. By hour 32, she is no longer observing the stars. She is whispering to the lens, her fingers tracing constellations on the screen that exist on no known star chart. At hour 18, the footage becomes almost unwatchable. Alina, her face a mask of terror and ecstasy, smashes a mirror in her private quarters. She takes the shards of glass and, with clinical precision, begins grafting them into her own eyelids, muttering to herself, "If I can't close them, they can't close me." The final 10 minutes of the recording contain no images at all, only the sound of ragged breathing, the hiss of static, and a low-frequency hum. When audio technicians isolated that hum and pitch-shifted it, they found a repeating 7-note sequence. It was a corrupted, inverted version of the Arecibo message, the radio signal humanity broadcast into space in 1974 as a greeting to extraterrestrial intelligence. But this wasn't a broadcast. It was a reply, a message being played back into the human mind, over and over, from inside the skull. Audio logs recovered from a small cassette recorder on Haver's office desk filled in the missing days. Her voice, at first calm and professional, becomes a thin, shredded whisper. In an entry dated November 1st, she says, "It started with the stars blinking in prime number intervals. I thought it was a sensor error, a glitch in the array. Then I realized they weren't blinking, they were winking. And every time I focused, every time I looked through the lens, I felt something look back. Not at me, through me, as if my body was just another lens in the series, as if I was already transparent." She describes her dreams becoming entangled with the telescope's data streams. She'd wake up to find her hands covered in frost despite a heated room, her nightgown smelling of burnt ozone. Her pupils, she noted with detached horror, were dilated to black disks that no longer reacted to light. By her final entry on November 3rd, the day Roland Voss first saw the heat bloom, she stops referring to the phenomenon with scientific terminology. She calls it the Watcher in the Array. But perhaps the most disturbing evidence found was not from Havers. Scattered across the main control room console were 112 yellow sticky notes, their adhesive long dead. They were covered in the same frantic handwriting found in Miriam Cho's medical files from 1988. The notes were dated sporadically between 1991 and 2006. They were fragmented warnings, the desperate diary of a ghost. Don't align during perihelion. It feeds on focused attention. The more you see, the more you become seen. And one phrase, written on at least 30 different notes: the eye is the antenna. Forensic analysis confirmed the handwriting belonged to Dr. Miriam Cho, the woman who had been institutionalized 2 decades prior. Official records showed she had escaped Cedar Hills in 1990 and was presumed dead. But she hadn't died. She had come back. Somehow, she had returned to Thornwood, living in the darkness of the service tunnels for 16 years. A silent sentinel, surviving on rainwater and stockpiled cans of peaches, documenting the slow, inevitable return of the entity that had first breached their reality during that fateful observation in 1988. This led the investigators to the telescope itself. The Mark V. Tikes primary mirror, a massive beryllium-coated disc designed to gather the faint light of distant galaxies, had been altered. Microscopic analysis revealed it was now covered in a thin biofilm, a lattice of organic filaments interwoven with crystalline structures exhibiting non-terrestrial isotopic ratios. It was biological, and it was alive. The film was photosynthetic, but it didn't metabolize sunlight. Its energy source was a combination of ambient gamma radiation and the focused light that passes through a human retina. The telescope had become a living lens, a biological instrument, and it was hungry for observation. The final piece of the puzzle was Dr. Havers' last journal entry, a single page torn from a 1992 wall calendar, found tucked beneath the vacuum cylinder in Vault Theta. The ink was smeared with her own tear fluid, mixed with trace amounts of beryllium dust from the mirror. She wrote, "I understand now. We didn't discover it. It discovered us. It was always there, waiting. Every time a human focuses a lens on the void, we punch a pinhole in the veil between worlds. And they lean closer. Not to communicate, to colonize. The eye isn't a window to the soul, it's a doorway. And I held it open for too long." The journal ends there, but in the margin, scrawled in a different pen, with a hand that was not hers, were 3 simple words: "We see you." In the aftermath, the entire site was sterilized with thermite and sealed under Containment Protocol Sigma 9, a classification so deep it officially doesn't exist. Satellite imagery from 2008 shows the iconic dome filled to the brim with reinforced concrete, a permanent monument to a terror that could not be destroyed, only buried. But the story doesn't end there. Amateur radio enthusiasts still report strange shortwave interference on 6.78 megahertz, the old observatory's long decommissioned emergency frequency. It isn't static. It's the sound of slow, wet breathing and a faint, rhythmic clicking, like an eyelid snapping open and shut. Roland Voss is still missing. Marcus Lynn's online presence vanished, though his ghost light video occasionally resurfaces on obscure forums, but it's been altered. A single frame has been inserted at the 2-minute, 17-second mark. It's a high-resolution close-up of a human eye, bloodshot and wide with terror, reflected in the black glass of a telescope lens. In the reflection of the iris, you can see the Thornwood Ridge dome, and if you have the courage to pause it to look closely, you can see a tall, slender figure standing in the doorway, watching you. There is one last detail, a detail redacted from all official reports. During the initial sweep of Vault Theta, investigators found a small Polaroid photograph pinned to the wall behind the pedestal. The photo shows Dr. Havers and Dr. Cho standing side by side in front of the Mark V telescope, arms around each other, smiling warmly. The date stamp on the bottom reads November 4, 2007. But Miriam Cho had been declared legally dead in 1999. And in the photograph, Eleanor Havers' smile is perfect, whole, a full set of bright white teeth. Dental records confirm she lost her upper left incisor in a lab accident in 1995. The photograph shows a memory of a day that never happened, from a time that could not exist. Sometimes, on clear nights, residents in the quiet neighborhoods below Thornwood Ridge report seeing a faint, amber light pulsing from the sealed observatory. A soft, steady glow, once every 37 seconds. They say if you stare at it for too long, your eyes begin to ache. You start seeing flickers in your peripheral vision. And your thoughts, they no longer feel like your own. They begin to echo. It's still up there, buried under tons of concrete, watching, and it's learning how to look back through us.